stabilized video footage in a small form factor is still trending in today's camera market. Now, the DJI Osmo Pocket started the trend quite successfully, and it continues to be one of the most valuable and one of the most fun pieces of technology that I have ever purchased. Now, as popular as portable stabilization has become, we are now starting to see some competitors to the Osmo Pocket. So today what I want to show you is, it's a relatively new camera, and it's from a company called Snoppa, and it's the VMate. And I'm going to show you how it kind of stands on its own, but I'm also going to compare it to the performance of the DJI Osmo Pocket. I know, weird, right? No hat today. So I don't think I've ever made a video without a hat, but there's a reason for that. And it's because I have a new logo coming. I'm going to be revealing it when I reach 100,000 subscribers, which is coming real soon. And so I won't have that hat anymore. I won't have that logo anymore. So yeah, I'm really excited to show it to you. I've been working on it for a very long time, and I found an awesome designer to create the perfect logo for me. So watch for that coming real soon. But for now, you're going to have to watch my bald head for the next few videos until we get to that 100K. So hi everyone, Russ here. I want to thank you first of all for stopping by the channel. I do really appreciate you clicking. And if you do find value here, go ahead and check out a few more of my videos after you're done watching this one. And if you like what you see, go ahead and click on that subscribe button. Now, I've actually had the Snoppa VMate for quite a long time, but I finally had some time to take it out and try everything out and give you guys an informed decision, because I wanted to try as much as I could and compare as much as I could so you guys could get the most information out of this video. So the first thing that I want to mention is that this kind of used to be considered a budget option up against the Osmo Pocket because it was a lot cheaper. But now DJI has actually lowered the price of the Pocket significantly. So the VMate right now, as the making of this video, is only about $30 cheaper than the Osmo Pocket. So basically there are 5 things that I really wanted to check out on this camera and also compare to the Osmo Pocket. Now, most of all, I'm interested in how the 4K at 60 frames per second video looks. But I also want to compare the autofocus, the stabilization, the audio quality, the time-lapse quality, because I really like time lapses. They just kind of add some fun, elements to your videos. And then I also want to check out the in-camera slow motion, because I think having that slow motion right away without having to do any editing is kind of nice. Now, getting in-camera slow motion is very difficult, especially with these smaller cameras, with these smaller sensors, but I want to check it out and see how it stacks up against the Osmo Pocket. So before we look at those things, let's take a few seconds to check out the hardware on the Snoppa VMate. Now, of course, it looks very similar to the Osmo Pocket, as all of these little small pocket cameras do. It only has one button on it, and that serves as the power button as well as the shutter button. Now, everything else is done on the very bright LCD screen. The screen is very bright. I do like that about it. It's much brighter than the Osmo Pocket. So that's pretty nice. I was shooting out in bright sunlight and I had no problem seeing what was on the screen. But, for the most part, you're going to have to do most of your settings and things like that on your phone, because when you have your phone attached to this, you have no access to this little mini screen. So you do everything on the phone, which is sometimes it's okay and sometimes it's not okay. But the coolest part about it is, and I'll talk about it a little bit here, is that the wireless connectivity is really cool, and it actually is pretty good. So we'll talk about that in just a second. But I don't like that the case has 2 parts to it, because I have a tendency to lose things, and I'm probably going to lose this top piece right here. But the bottom piece serves as a phone mount. And overall, I guess I would have to say the build quality of the Snoppa VMate is very good. It's heavy duty. It feels heavy in the hand, and it feels like if I dropped it, it wouldn't hurt it too badly. I'm not gonna drop it, but if you do happen to drop it, I think it would be okay. And I do like that the lens rotates to 90-degree angle, so you can shoot portrait mode. So if you do a lot of like Instagram stuff or other social media stuff and you want to shoot in portrait mode, you can just do that by twisting the lens on top of it. And so that's pretty nice. And then the USB charging port is on the bottom. Now, the biggest advantage, like I said, that I realized right away is that the VMate it connects wirelessly through Bluetooth to your phone. So there's no cords, there's no adapters that you have to purchase. And so that's really nice. And with the most recent firmware update, it actually connects very quickly and it has a very stable connection. So I really like that. Now, when you first start looking at the footage that's captured by the VMate, it looks relatively good. Overall, it has a nice sharp video and the dynamic range is really good. I did notice a slight purplish hue to a lot of the VMate footage, especially in the skies, so the colors aren't the best. And then once in a while, I did experience some dropped frames where I was recording and then it kind of jumped ahead about a half a second, so I kind of missed some frames in there. So that happened once in a while, but overall in adequate lighting, the 4K 60 footage on this camera is very nice. Now in low light situations, I think the Osmo Pocket gets the win. So if you're going to be using this camera in a lot of low light situations, you probably would be better off going with the Osmo Pocket. Now, of course, the biggest reason that most people want to get a pocket camera is for the stabilization, the mechanical stabilization that it provides. Now, most smartphones have very good cameras on them these days, and they're getting better and better, but the stabilization on them is digital stabilization. And sometimes digital stabilization looks kind of fake. It looks really funky, but mechanical stabilization is still better, but hopefully someday digital stabilization catches up. But for now, these little cameras are still going to be pretty popular. When you compare the stabilization side by side to the Osmo Pocket, there really isn't much of a difference. You really don't notice much of a difference, but there were a few times where when I was panning to the left or to the right with the VMate that I would see a little bit of jumping. It wasn't nice and smooth. It was kind of like skipping along. Now, that didn't happen every time, but it definitely was an issue sometimes. Now, if you practice your ninja walking and you don't pan too quickly with the VMate, it's right on par with the stabilization of the Osmo Pocket. Okay, so here's what I figured out why I was getting dropped frames and why the panning was always so jerky, because it was driving me crazy that I saw it sometimes, but not other times. And what I figured out is whenever I was using the phone with the VMate, whenever I had my Google Pixel 3 XL connected wirelessly and I was recording with the phone attached, then I started to get the dropped frames and that jittery footage. But if I'm just using the VMate by itself, I don't get any of that. I don't get any of that jumpy footage, and I don't get any dropped frames. So I'm not sure why it's doing that. It might be a phone compatibility issue, but I just don't know, because you really need to have the phone to be able to use this the way that it should be used. But every time I had the phone attached, it did that. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But otherwise, the 4K 60 footage looks great. The autofocus on the VMate is actually quite good. I didn't have any occasions of it hunting around, and it locks on quickly. I had some pretty low expectations for it because, you know, when I was watching the early reviews of this, they didn't have much nice things to say about the autofocus on this camera. So I didn't think it would be as good as it was. Like when the DJI Osmo Pocket was released, it had awful autofocus, and I was pretty disappointed in that. But a few updates later, it got much better. And the same goes for the VMate. So those people that were reviewing it right away when it came out, the autofocus was not very good, but they've updated it a few times since then. And right now, I think the autofocus on it is great. The audio quality on the VMate is quite poor. No matter how you hold the camera, it just sounds very tinny, and I had to really crank it up in post-production to be able to even hear it. It's really, really low. Now you can connect a microphone through Bluetooth, like with your AirPods or something like that, and I think that would definitely help a lot, but I don't actually have a set of Bluetooth headphones or a Bluetooth microphone or anything right now that I can use. But one thing that you can do with the VMate, which is really cool, you can choose your mobile device to record your audio. So here's the audio coming straight out of the VMate. And like I said, it's pretty much unusable. You're not going to be able to use this with anything. It is terrible. But the cool thing about the VMate is that you can switch the audio source to your mobile device. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now so you can hear the difference. So here's the audio recording directly from my Google Pixel 3 XL onto the micro SD card on the VMate. So that's really cool that you're able to do that. It's going to sound much better. It's still not perfect audio, but it's going to sound much better than if you just use the VMate microphone. So if you're going to be using this with your phone, make sure that you have the audio source, and most of the time that's going to be much better than the VMate audio. So the Osmo Pocket sounds pretty good as well, but if you want to see my favorite setup for getting high quality audio out of the Osmo Pocket, go ahead and watch this video right here. It is still a really great setup. The time lapse on both of these cameras is acceptable, but the VMate seems like it's not as stable as the Osmo Pocket. It kind of moves around a little bit, and even though there was just a slight breeze, you still got some movement in the final product. Now, one thing that the VMate actually beat the Pocket on was the dynamic range. Go ahead and look at this image right here and look at the shadows. I think the VMate did a really nice job there. Finally, another fun thing to add to your videos, and one of the things that I really like, is slow motion. Now, when I first started shooting slow motion with the VMate, I thought it looked pretty good as I was watching it on my phone. But then after I did a little bit of editing and I watched it on my computer and I looked closer at it, the Osmo Pocket slow motion is much better. It's not terrible, but when you put it up against the Pocket that's when you see how much better it actually could be. Oh, and one more thing that I probably should mention is that the motion tracking on the VMate actually does a pretty nice job. And that's where you can just highlight what you want on the screen. You can just swipe on it and it will continue to focus on that. It'll lock on it. And as it moves around, it'll follow it. It'll keep it in the center of the frame. Now, it stayed locked on very well, but it can't keep up with one of the fastest kids in the north. So your subject does have to be moving relatively slow. So because these cameras are about the same price right now, about a $30 difference, is there anything that would make me choose the VMate over the Osmo Pocket? Well, I do love the wireless connectivity. It connects very quickly and it's pretty stable, but you do, like I said, have to stay pretty close to the camera, like really close. Otherwise it does disconnect. I'm actually impressed with the user interface on the VMate. I think it's a little bit more intuitive and easier to navigate, especially if you've never used one of these cameras. If you've never used anything like this before, it's easy to get around and within a few minutes, you know what you're doing with it. And finally, the dynamic range on the VMate seems to be a little bit better in some situations. A good example is like this shot of the church. I mean, look at the difference in the shadows between these two images. Here's the VMate and then here's the Osmo Pocket footage. So I think the VMate did better in that situation. So overall, in the battle between these two little pocket cameras, I definitely have to give the overall win to the Osmo Pocket, mostly because it handles low light situations better and the stabilization. I just can't get past those occasional jerky movements and those times when the footage would skip ahead a few frames on the VMate. The Pocket has been an incredible camera for me, and now that I have actually compared it to a similar design to a camera that's kind of like it, I do appreciate its capabilities even more. However, I would say that if you like the wireless connectivity without having to buy anything extra, and you're going to be doing the majority of your recording in adequate lighting, then the Snoppa VMate might be worth looking at. I'm going to have purchase links down below in the video description if you're interested in getting either of these cameras. As you leave the video today, click on one of the thumbs, preferably the one that's pointing up. I want to thank you so much for watching the video today. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.